Hello, this is a bit of biology with Mr. Rock. Today we're going to be talking about mitochondria and cellular respiration. A lot of people know, a lot of people say at least, that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. I think 95% of people don't even know what that means or what the mitochondria does specifically. Some people know that the mitochondria makes a lot of ATP, and that's absolutely correct. So just to begin, just an overview of some of the main points about cellular respiration, which is the process which mitochondria do. Number one, mitochondria need oxygen and glucose to do cell respiration. This is taking place in the mitochondria, so the location as far as in the cell goes is within the mitochondria. And the organisms that can do this are eukaryotic. So if it has a mitochondria, it can do cellular respiration. And cellular respiration is a process of making ATP from glucose. Here at the bottom, we have the equation, and the two things that go in are glucose and oxygen, and the things that come out, the main thing is ATP, but then there's also carbon dioxide and water. If you have already learned about photosynthesis, you learned about one process. You learned about photosynthesis, and there was a light and the dark reaction. In cell respiration, it's a little different because there are two different pathways that the glucose molecule can go. And you've heard of these words before, so anaerobic versus aerobic. Anaerobic means without oxygen, and aerobic means with oxygen. So when you do your aerobic exercises, they're usually not very high impact, and you're able to breathe a lot during the exercise. That's aerobic. Anaerobic exercise would be something like sprints. So aerobic would be long distance running, anaerobic would be something like sprinting. So it'll be explained more with the next slide, but in anaerobic respiration, there is no oxygen present in the cell. So your body has, or your cells have a plan B. And this plan B is to make ATP even though there's not oxygen. So this does not take place in the mitochondria, it actually takes place in the cytoplasm. The products, so there are byproducts whenever you do a chemical equation, there's always things that are left over. If we're talking about yeast, this is actually how we make alcohol, is through anaerobic respiration. If we're talking about humans, you've experienced anaerobic respiration before. Evidence of that is lactic acid. So whenever you feel sore, that's lactic acid buildup, and that means you're exercising without oxygen in your body. Aerobic means that there's a presence of oxygen. What this essentially means is that your cell is able to do cell respiration efficiently. So it's able to break down glucose in the presence of oxygen. As far as ATP amount goes, on the right side, aerobic respiration is much more efficient. It's extremely efficient. You get 38 ATP in aerobic respiration when compared to anaerobic respiration, which you only get 2 ATP. Anaerobic is the plan B for your cells. If you have oxygen, you're going to make ATP in your mitochondria. So aerobic respiration is plan A. This image may be a little confusing, but I hope it makes sense by the end of this explanation. Glucose comes into the cell, and the glucose is the blue molecule at top. It comes into the cell. As soon as it's in the cell, glycolysis happens. What glycolysis is breaking down glucose into a smaller sugar molecule called pyruvate. From there, pyruvate has two options. If the cell has oxygen, it is going to move to the right. So if the cell has oxygen, it's going to move to the right and into the mitochondria. This is where the Krebs cycle and oxidative phosphorylation is going to take place. So those are two processes. I'll define those in a little bit. But if there is oxygen present in the cell, pyruvate is going to move into the mitochondria, and 38 ATP are going to be made. If there is not oxygen present, the pyruvate is going to stay in the cytoplasm. So no oxygen, pyruvate which is broken down glucose, is going to stay in the cytoplasm. Fermentation is going to happen, and that is breaking down sugar molecules without oxygen. So if we're humans, this is going to result in lactic acid, and like I said, this is going to be taking place in the cytoplasm. On the left is anaerobic respiration, on the right is aerobic respiration. I just explained some of these processes, but these are the definitions for the image before this. So, step one, glycolysis, like I said, it's breaking down glucose in the cytoplasm. And it's really that you break down glucose in the cytoplasm. So this is not in the mitochondria. Pyruvate is just broken down glucose. So it's a sugar molecule, and it's just a broken down version of glucose. Fermentation can also be substituted for the word anaerobic respiration. Fermentation is the same as anaerobic respiration. It's the process of breaking down sugar molecules to make ATP, and it takes place in the cytoplasm. The last two words here, Krebs cycle and oxidative phosphorylation, these are really big words. The thing that I need you to know about these processes are, one, they are a process, they take place in the mitochondria, and they make a lot of ATP. So the Krebs cycle and oxidative phosphorylation, their process takes place in the mitochondria, and it makes a lot of ATP. So closing thoughts on cell respiration and mitochondria, summary of cellular respiration. Number one, it breaks down food for energy. So it takes glucose and it makes ATP. Number two, for cell respiration, it takes place in the mitochondria. Step three, plants and animal cells can do cellular respiration. Both plants and animal cells have mitochondria. Step four, it produces ATP, which is cellular energy. And finally, CO2 and water are byproducts. So they are not purposefully created, they are just left over, and you breathe carbon dioxide and water out every single time you breathe. Thank you for watching the video. This has been a bit of biology with Mr. Rock. I'm signing off.